Hi everyone, it's me, Carrie. In this video, I want to show you something that I'm pretty proud of. You might remember that a month ago, I uploaded a video to this channel talking about how I was enrolled in this Stanford class called CS 148. In that class, they teach you about 3D software like Blender, both how to use it and how it works. Now, I had never touched Blender in my life, so I was a total Blender newbie, and I was worried I was going to have trouble in the class. But on December 8th, at the end of the quarter, they had us turn in our final projects, which was supposed to be a fully rendered, high definition, ray traced image of some Blender scene you'd created. So I want to show you my final project. Are you ready to take a look? 3, 2, 1, go! Oh, that didn't really work because of the whole OBS window thing. But anyway, oh yeah, this is my final project, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. So you can see how it's kind of metaphorical because you have two Rubik's Cubes. One is scrambled, one is solved. You know me, I love my Rubik's Cubes. But the scrambled cube looks like he's kind of envious of the solved cube. And you can tell that because he's got this rain cloud above his head showing the negative emotions. And then there's a wooden frame in between the two. It's sort of ambiguous. Is that wooden frame just a window and he's seeing a real second cube he's jealous of? Or is it a mirror? And he's looking at like a true reflection of himself. Nobody knows. So I ended up getting a 90% on this project, which I'm very happy with. But I want to talk about how my session of working on this final project wasn't your typical one. So as you know, I was traveling abroad in Chile for the last couple weeks because I was looking at a total solar eclipse. And it just so happened that the final due date for this project, December 8th, was when I wasn't even in the United States. So there was a lot of sort of confusion and like hecticness because of time zone differences. And also whenever you travel abroad, crazy things happen. Like I got my passport stolen in Chile just a couple days before this whole thing, and that was sort of occupying my mind. So because of all of that, I didn't actually start working on this final project until 12 hours after the technical due date of it. But, I sent an email to the staff and Ron Fedq, who's the teacher of the class, telling them like, oh, time zones are a little confusing and all that. And they completely understood. And, I appreciate their kindness. So because of all of that, I didn't start working on this image until 5 p.m. of one day, knowing that I had to finish it by 5 a.m. of that night. So that's like a 12-hour session. And during that night, I also went out to get dinner with some other eclipse chasers. Oh, that sounds weird, chaser. Like people who try to see every eclipse. And I just realized like that dinner might have taken up like a few more hours. So maybe I only had like 8 hours to do this. And as a Blender novice, I didn't know if anything I could make creatively would come out well, because all the projects we had worked on previously in the quarter were more like exercises or sort of things that like you didn't have free roam to do whatever you wanted. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. And now I want to take you to Blender. Wait, can you see this? Yeah, you can see this. The actual Blender scene, the behind the scenes. So you can see that I didn't just take the image from the internet. I really did build it. But also if you're curious how to do something like this is how. So this is the Blender scene. And you can see I can just click on any of these stickers of the Rubik's Cube and like move them around like that, which I think is really funny. I mean, I don't want to ruin this scene, so let me undo those changes. But yeah, so one requirement of the class project was you have to create one 3D object where you draw the texture for that object and then do UV mapping for the texture coordinates onto the object. That sort of just means that you're telling the computer, hey, I want these coordinates of the texture image to be mapped onto these coordinates of the 3D object. Now, for this, I switched over to Adobe Animate, which is my bread and butter. This is what I use to make all the animations on my YouTube videos, so I feel very comfortable with it. And I created, the class said you only had to create one texture, but I feel quite proud because I created 7 technically. So I made, one of each. They're not really 7 different textures, it's just different recolorings. But each of these is sort of like a cube map layout. And I wanted the stickers to look a little dirty because if it's too clean and pristine, it looks too perfect and not realistic. So there's a little bit of like dirt and grime on the stickers. And then I also added this effect where the outer edges of the cube faces are darker than the middle with this little gradient sort of between the bright and the dark. Because I thought that would help make the stickers look like they had more of an outline and pop out a little more. And then finally, for the white sticker, there's the plain white one, but then there's the logo version of the white sticker. And for the logo, I drew this little thing that says 148, which is the name of the class, but it's in this geometric style, paying homage to the Rubik's Cube company called GAN, or Speed Cube. It's not Rubik's, it's a Speed Cube company. And they make some of the best Speed Cubes, and the GAN logo also has this sort of geometric shape to it. So I hope that the CS 148 teacher's aides that graded my assignment realized that this was, paying tribute to the class that they were in. I don't know. Anyway, when I came back to Blender to import these images and then map them onto the stickers, I was really surprised that it created this effect where it looks like the cube is sort of glowing, right? If I drag out this blue cube, I don't know how else to describe it, but the fact that the edges are a little darker and the centers are a little brighter, it looks like it's sort of made out of Minecraft glowstone or something, you know what I mean? And that was an effect I totally wasn't expecting, but I was happily embracing. And again, we can look at the final image to see oh, it doesn't look like it's glowing as much here. The roughness really helps make it look just like a rough object, but still, it's fun to experiment and get these things from. So another requirement of the class project was create a procedural texture. And what do I mean by that? Well, look at this wooden frame in the middle. If you actually look at the basic geometry of the scene, which I'm showing right here, the wood frame itself is a very low poly, simple shape, right? It's only got it's made of essentially 3 rectangular prisms with the centers carved out. So what is that? Maybe 20, 30 vertices? It's very low poly. So how do you create this rough textured look of this right here? You can't just add a ton of vertices. That would be really slow. So you create a procedural texture by going to the shading tab on Blender. I think if I click on this, does it work? And then click here. Yeah, if I click here, you can see it. And it's like a formula that you feed into the computer that tells it, what coordinates should be darker versus brighter based on some noise function. And that formula can be fed through these nodes and edges into both the color of the texture, but also the height. We're talking displacement. So if you look really closely at the final image, some parts are clearly engraved deep into the wood and some parts are raised above, creating this sort of bumpy, striated texture of wood. And you get that by telling the computer hey, this function, also feed it into actually how high the bumps of the object are. And it creates a very convincing wood look. And I don't know if you can, wait, is this, how do I do this? Yeah, I haven't touched this this Blender file for a while, so it might be a little confusing. But I can sort of just change, I think I can just change colors here and then you'll see it change in the thing above. Yeah, see, I can make it red, I can make it blue or green or whatever. That is mossy wood. I don't know if that's convincing. But there's so many fun things you can do with formulas and functions. One of them is that look at the wood. If you look at it side on, you can see it's striated up and down, it's stretched, because wood often has a direction of the grain, whereas on the top it's not, and on the side it is. So clearly in the Z dimension, this is the Z dimension, up and down, it's stretched, and you can see that described here. I think it's really small. It says 1.2.2. I don't know if you can even see that. Well, it doesn't matter. You don't need to see the details. I'll just change this number. I'll change this number, and you can see that the texture of the wood is looks different now. Now the stretching is on the top. There's no visible texture at all. But if I bring it back down, you might see it come out again. There, it's coming back. You can make it like really weird if y is 0, because then there's no change across the y dimension at all. Like 0.1 brings it back, and then 0.2 gives you the more, like, I don't know how to describe it. Basically, just learn math, learn Blender, and then like this stuff, you'll realize like how powerful it really is. And then the third requirement of the final project was you need to create some volumetric. It's like an advanced technique in Blender. You need to create a volumetric item, and I chose to do the cloud, the rain cloud, and it's here. But to be honest, I did the rain cloud last, which was about like 3 or 4 a.m. in the morning before the project was due. So I don't even remember exactly how I did it. I think at that point it felt like a fever dream, like, oh, I just need to finish this project in time. But it's kind of funny because based on tutorials I saw online, it's easy to accidentally delete a volumetric shape in Blender because, you know, they're not as fully described in the scene. So they said create a backup of the original cloud shape somewhere that you can't see in the scene, so that like if you accidentally delete your cloud, you still have it. So there's 2 clouds, one of them's under the table, so it isn't seen from the camera, and I think that's a little funny. And then the marble is also a procedural texture, and if you actually look at the final image I rendered, you can see that like the displacement, the bumps of the texture, they're much more subtle than the wood. But if you look at the reflection of these 3 stickers, can you see like the top of the solved Rubik's Cube has these 3 white stickers that are reflected on the marble table. The bumpiness of the marble, which is very subtle, you can't see it anywhere else, it makes the reflections look a little glossy or a little like, you know, wobbly, which I think to me really sells the idea that this is a marble table. And I don't know, I just love that sort of subtleness to it. You can also see it over here and in the reflection of the first cube, and only because it's in shadow too. Like in the lit parts, the direct sunlight is too bright to even see the reflection. So many things have to be just right to actually get those effects to be visible. Yeah, and then the background is just a freely available skybox that came from some website that just releases these skybox images, and the class CS148 let us use those, so don't worry, it's not a ding against my project grade. And yeah, that's about it for the final project. Oh, I can also show you that if you go to Blender, so I can just render new images by going render image, and it's ray tracing. Like in the preview window back here, this is rasterized rendering, which is very fast, where you just like put pixels or put vertices through a like transformation matrix and you get results. In the ray traced final render here, we're actually sending out like thousands or millions of rays from the camera point and seeing where they hit, which is more realistic to the real world. And so these renders take a long time. You can see that in the corner here it says sample 30 out of 4,000, which means this render is technically still only 1% done. But it sort of approaches what the final image will look like quite quickly. So I can actually stop it after like 1% completion, just because it's not going to change at all in the last 99%. But what I want to show you is, okay, I'm going to close that, is that I can like change how the scene looks. Well, first of all, you saw that the wood is now green, so that makes it look very different. But here, out in the distance is the camera object, and I can make the scene look very different by just moving it around. So let's move it along the y-axis, like we're gonna go off to the side. And then the camera's still pointing like diagonally, like that way. I don't know if you can see, like this way. So in order to get it to capture this, well, I can just show you that's like why that's bad. If I render image now, nothing's in the scene. Like we only get the skybox because the camera's not even looking at the main focus of like these objects. So I'm gonna go to here, and if I change, okay, look closely at the camera object. It's like pointing to the northeast. If I move this, it's spinning, I'm spinning, yay. So let me try to get it to point to the table again, and then if I hit render, we should be seeing the same scene, but from a different angle. Isn't this so cool? Like this, to me, is the absolute proof that, you know, I'm not taking this from the internet. Like clearly I have the full power to do whatever I want with the scene, which is just like the most amazing thing. So now we're seeing the wooden frame from the dark side, as if like the sun is on the other side of the camera. So it's in shadow. I mean, it's also still green, which is weird, but you see the cubes from a different angle. You see the cloud from a different angle. You see a different part of the skybox. And basically you have so much control. Like if you learn Blender, it's like there's so many different parameters you can adjust to get different effects on the scene. This green wood just looks so unrealistic to me. Like, it's not what mossy wood looks like. It's just wood that is somehow green. Yeah, but I really had a fun time in this class. So the class is now over, and I don't know if I'm going to, like, I want to keep practicing my Blender skills, but I don't know if I'm going to be like incorporating in videos or not. Maybe I just won't have the time or energy to follow this up. Maybe I will, who knows. So if not, you know, at least I created one Blender image that happened to look professional. I think my actual Blender skill is quite novice, and I got very lucky that this image, to me, does look quite professional, which, I mean, just by my, like, untrained eye, I'm very happy with how it turned out. But I think, you know, if I want to get to the level of, like, fluent or, like, proficient Blender experts who can sort of just imagine a scene and then build it, I need to keep practicing this skill more and more. Because, like, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Do you see all these tabs at the top of the window? Wait, let me see if I can make it more obvious. Blender has a lot of different modes, right? So here it says layout. This is like the main sort of tab where you can like drag, like select objects and move them around. Like I can just move it here, or I could like rotate it. Or how do I rotate? Like oh no, that didn't work. RZ. Oh, why isn't this working? I don't know. Well, I can move it basically. So there's like 10 or 12 of these tabs, and I only know about layout, shading, which is the sort of nodes and functions to create the procedural stuff, and UV editing, which is for like telling the computer where the texture should go. Yeah, I can show you like a little bit of UV editing. Basically what I'm saying is that at least 3/4 of these tabs I've never even touched before. Like compositing, I don't know how that works. Texture paint, wait, what is this? This is like, wait, it's a magenta now. It's like all these different colors. What is even happening? See, I don't know, and hopefully one day I will understand what all these tabs mean. But I wanted to show you UV editing stuff. Don't save. I don't want to save all the harmful, destructive edits I made during the scene. So this is a older version of the Blender file before I had created much of the scene. I just had the Rubik's Cube. You can see that like on this side here, if you go to UV editing, I have the image of the texture which I rendered from Flash or Adobe Animate loaded here, which is the cube map. And then if I select one of these guys, how do I do this? I don't actually know how to do this. Actually, I think the first one is a better example. Basically, you can change the way that a texture is taken from an image and mapped onto a 3D object. And if you drag around different points in there, you can like change the way that the texture image looks. And it's very important because if you accidentally get your UV editing wrong, you might end up with like very stretched textures, which is extremely hard to work with. Let me see if I can go back to the other one. Don't save. UV, oh wait, select this, UV editing. Yeah, I guess this kind of shows you like, I don't know if you can see here, but, oh no, you can't because, shoot, I didn't show you anything. Well, okay, now I can show you again. OBS is hard when you only have one monitor. Like if you have two monitors, you can see what you're recording as you're recording it, but if you only have one monitor, you can't. Because I'm on a MacBook M1 chip. Did I already say this in this take? I'm using a MacBook M1 laptop, and I don't think Blender would run with such high frame rate if it was a typical laptop. So I'm very like happy with this computer's performance, but it also means that I can't do OBS recordings that easily. But anyway, see, this is UV editing, and I'm selecting the wood frame even though it doesn't have a texture image. But you can see these like facets on the lower left that show like where in UV space the textures are mapped. And you can like select one, and I think you can drag it around, although you won't really see the effect. Oh, yeah. Oh, see, like it's moving. And the reason why we use a checkerboard is because when the checkerboard is mapped back on the 3D image, it's very clear to see when the squares get very stretched in one dimension or the other. And when they are stretched, that's a warning sign, because like when you do draw your texture image, it's also going to be stretched, and that's not good. So yeah, that's one of the skills that, for me, it's still very hard to figure out how to do UV mapping, but I did it. Okay, I think I don't want this video to be too long. Thank you for coming along on my Blender learning journey. Hopefully this is just the start. If there are any Blender experts out there, maybe it's fun for you to see this novice like scrambling around and like, you know, learning, getting closer to your level. Watch out, I'm going to replace you. Just kidding. Again, this was my final project. And then let's see what else is in this folder. So they also had us like render a different angle of the scene just to prove that, you know, we did have full control over it. So I turned this in as well. It's interesting that like the sunlight reflection on this side of the Rubik's Cube face is so bright it bleeds to white. And then what else did they have us turn in? B is just the version without textures. It's all gray, which shows the simplicity of this actual scene. And Blender, the PDF, I guess that's it, yeah. Okay, I don't want this video to be too long. Thank you for watching, everyone. If there's anything else I want to mention about my experience with this class or with Blender, I'll just put it in the description, or I'll make another video. Also, I recorded a video a while back about my final grades that I got for this whole quarter. I don't know if I'm going to upload that, but you know, the gist of it is like, somehow I got 3 A's in the 3 classes I was taking, which I really wasn't expecting. I thought I was going to get at least 2 B's, because I felt like I was like not really acing the material out that they were teaching, and I was being a bad student. But I guess some final exams went better than I thought. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thanks for watching. Maybe by the next video I will be even better at Blender, who knows. Goodbye.